Most men try to learn about a woman by asking her. They ask about her past, her heartbreaks, her childhood. But the moment you ask, the truth starts to disappear, not because she's lying, but because she's protecting herself. And what you're left with is the edited version of her story. But if you know how to watch, really watch, you'll see that her past isn't hidden. It's written in her habits, her reactions, her silences. In this video, I'll show you how to decode the signals she doesn't even know she's sending, so you can see who she really is, without asking a single question. Observation number 1, her relationship with attention. If you want to understand a woman's past, don't start with questions. Start with attention, not the kind you give her, but the kind she chases. Watch her in public, in a crowded room, at a party, online. Notice how she holds herself when others are watching. Does she become louder, more animated, more alluring the moment she senses eyes on her? Or does she stay consistent, whether seen or unseen? There's a hidden signal here. A woman who was emotionally ignored in the past, whether by a partner, a parent, or her environment, learns something dangerous, that her worth is tied to being noticed. She might not even realize it, but deep down, she's trying to rewrite a story that once told her she didn't matter. That's why she posts the perfect picture, tracks the likes, and brings up how many guys flirted with her that week. Even if you didn't ask, it's not just self-expression, it's emotional compensation. And if you confuse that for confidence, you'll miss what's actually broken underneath. Because here's the truth. A woman who needs attention is trying to heal a wound, and wounds don't disappear just because you treat her well. When that attention stops flowing from you, she'll feel the panic, and without knowing why, she'll seek it elsewhere, not to betray you, but to fill the silence. So ask yourself, does she enjoy attention? Or does she need it to feel real? That one question can reveal more about her past than any answer she could ever give. Think about it. You've seen this before. The woman who can't go an hour without checking her notifications. The one who thrives on compliments, but crumbles in silence. You thought she was confident, but it wasn't confidence. It was survival. Some women weren't seen as children, so now they perform as adults. And if you're not careful, you'll end up applauding a wound instead of recognizing the pain behind it. Observation number 2, how she talks about other women. Most men listen to how a woman talks to them, but the wiser man listens to how she talks about others, especially other women. Pay attention to those offhand remarks. When she talks about her friends, her coworkers, or even strangers, does her tone shift? Is there warmth or is there sharpness? Is she supportive or subtly competitive? If every woman she brings up is fake, messy, trying too hard, or probably cheating, you're not hearing stories. You're hearing unhealed rivalry. You're listening to the echoes of betrayal, to friendships that didn't last, to wounds she hasn't named yet. Criticism is rarely random. A woman who constantly mocks others for being too flirtatious might still be carrying the sting of being cheated on. One who rolls her eyes at another woman's success may secretly feel like she's behind in her own life. And when she says things like, "I just don't get along with women," don't mistake that for independence. That's not strength. That's isolation disguised as control. Because when every woman is seen as a threat, what she's really saying is, "I don't feel safe anywhere." Here's what most men miss. When she tears others down, she's not exposing them. She's exposing herself, her fears, her doubts, her self-image. Projection is the oldest emotional defense in the book. And if you don't see it for what it is, you'll mistake emotional instability for personality. And by the time the pattern turns on you, it's already too late. These moments may sound like gossip, but they're not. They're emotional confessionals, dressed in sarcasm. If she's at peace with herself, she'll likely be at peace with others. But if she's still battling ghosts, she'll see enemies in every reflection. So don't just hear what she says. Watch what she reveals. When she thinks she's being casual. Observation number 3. Conflict style. What she does when things go wrong. You don't really know someone until you've seen how they handle pressure. Not when things are going well, but when things fall apart. A missed call, a forgotten plan, a moment where she feels dismissed. Watch what happens next. Does she go quiet? Withdraw into herself? Does she explode, lash out, accuse, make you feel like the villain? Or does she pause, breathe, and respond with clarity? These responses might seem spontaneous, but they're not. They're emotional habits, carved by past survival. A woman who was punished for expressing herself may shut down when things get tense. One who was manipulated or gaslit might go into attack mode because that's how she protected herself last time. It's not about what you said. It's about what it reminded her of. In her mind, she's not reacting to you. She's reacting to the pattern. And unless you recognize it, you'll spend months trying to fix something that was never yours to fix. Most men argue back, or worse, they try to calm her down. But here's the truth. If you try to fix her reaction without understanding its origin, you become another trigger. You become the new villain in an old story. Because trauma has no sense of time. It doesn't ask who's to blame. It just defends, even when there's nothing to defend against. So the next time she overreacts to something small, don't just ask what happened. Ask yourself, what wound did this moment touch? Because the way she fights, the way she distances, the way she clings or crumbles, it's not random. It's a replay, a reenactment of how she learned to survive. And once you see that, you'll stop reacting with emotion and start responding with clarity. Observation number 4, her relationship timeline. You don't need to ask, when was your last relationship? That question only invites the edited version, the clean story she's prepared to tell. But the truth? It leaks out when she's not trying to tell it. You'll hear it in the way she talks about places. We used to go there all the time. Pause on that. Who's we? That one word may carry 1,000 unspoken pictures. Listen for how she references time. That was 2 years ago. I had to rebuild everything after that. These phrases are timestamps, emotional markers. And if she avoids time altogether or skips over chapters entirely, That silence might speak louder than anything else. Here's what most men miss. When a woman avoids a period of her life, it's rarely because it's irrelevant. People skip what still hurts. Pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes it shrugs. It's not worth talking about. I barely remember that. But if it was truly healed, she wouldn't need to hide it. You don't need dates, names, or a list of exes. You just need awareness. The ability to read between the lines. Because her timeline isn't buried. She's living in it, every day. Even if she thinks she's moved on. And your role? Not to fix anything, but to see clearly through proheresis, the Stoic power of judgment. To understand that what she carries isn't yours to solve, but it is yours to recognize. And decide if you're walking into her story or becoming a footnote in it. Observation number 5, her views on men in general. Most men only pay attention to how a woman talks about them. But if you want to know who hurt her, who shaped her lens, listen to how she talks about men as a whole. Not just her ex, not just that one guy who cheated, but the way she speaks about all men as a category. Men are trash. They all leave eventually. I'd rather be alone than deal with another guy like that. At first, it sounds like a joke, cynical humor, a personality quirk, something she just says. But if you listen carefully, you'll feel it. That sting behind the sarcasm. That bite behind the laugh. That moment, her smile doesn't reach her eyes. This isn't just talk. This is her blueprint, her emotional software. And no matter how kind or grounded you are, if that code says men equals danger, then sooner or later, she'll see danger in you, even when there's none. Here's the part most men miss. You think you're starting at 0. You're not. If she's still carrying the weight of the men who failed her, then you're walking into a story, already in progress. And you're playing a role you didn't audition for. The villain, the disappointment, the one who leaves. Not because of who you are, but because that's how the last chapter ended. And in her mind, all chapters rhyme. That's why it matters. Because these aren't just opinions. They're survival logic. And unless you recognize the pattern, you'll personalize her fear. You'll defend yourself against ghosts. So don't just hear what she says about men. Watch what she believes about them. Because what she believes is what she'll expect. And what she expects is what she'll eventually project. Observation number 6, how she talks about her family. If you want to understand how a woman forms emotional bonds, you don't need to dig. You just need to listen to how she talks about the people who raised her, especially her father. Because that relationship is the first script she ever learned about love, attention, trust, and pain. If her father was emotionally absent, if his love was earned, inconsistent, or conditional, that pattern doesn't disappear. It just reappears. In her expectations, her defenses, her fears, she may crave intimacy, but pull away when it gets too real. She may demand proof of loyalty, but never truly believe it. She may seem independent, but test you constantly, just to see if you'll leave the way someone else did. And you might think she's overreacting, but she's not reacting to you. She's reacting to him, the man who didn't protect her, didn't listen, didn't show up, or showed up only to disappear again. Here's what most men never realize. You're not her first emotional experience. You're just the next one. Her nervous system doesn't know timelines. It only knows patterns. And if you start to resemble that emotional rhythm, even by accident, her guard will go up, fast. You'll think she's being distant, cold, confusing. But really, you just triggered a memory. On the other hand, if she had a father who was present, who showed up consistently, who made her feel safe and valued, that foundation echoes too. She'll communicate clearly. She'll trust until given a reason not to. She'll expect peace, not prepare for war. You don't need her life story. You just need to notice her tone. How she speaks about holidays. How she describes home. Whether she flinches. When you ask about her parents. People rarely outgrow the emotional world they were raised in. They just learn to make it look normal. So when she talks about her family, she's not giving you trivia. She's giving you a blueprint. The only question is, do you recognize the pattern? Observation number 7. What makes her emotional? There's one more signal that reveals a woman's past more clearly than words. What moves her and what doesn't. You're not just looking for tears or dramatic reactions. You're watching for subtle shifts, the pause in her voice, the sudden quiet during a song, the glance that lingers a little too long. Maybe she flinches during a scene in a movie about abandonment. Maybe she skips a song about betrayal every time it comes on. Or maybe she doesn't react to anything. That numbness is not strength, it's armor. People don't go cold unless the heat once burned them. And people don't overreact unless the wound is still open. What stirs her up? What shuts her down? Those are emotional footprints leading straight back to the version of her you've never met. And sometimes the things that trigger her have nothing to do with relationships. Maybe it's being excluded. Maybe it's raised voices. Maybe it's when someone forgets the little things. It seems minor to you, but to her, it's the past echoing through the present. These aren't random emotions. They're messages. They say, this has happened before. They say, this hurt once. They say, I'm not over it. And if you're not paying attention, you'll either dismiss her response or absorb the blame for pain you didn't cause. But if you're sharp, you'll understand these reactions aren't about now. They're about then. The key is not to get lost in her story, but to observe it, like a Stoic, calm, detached, aware. You don't need to ask her about her past. She's already telling you in how she walks, how she argues, how she loves, and how she breaks. The signs are always there, but most men are too busy talking to ever see them. You don't need to interrogate. You need to observe. Her past isn't hidden. It's written -- in habits, silences, and the patterns she repeats, without even realizing it. The only real question is this: are you clear-eyed enough to recognize the story you're stepping into? Or will you wake up months from now, wondering how you got caught in someone else's unresolved war? The truth always leaks out. The only question is whether you're sharp enough to see it. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel for more Stoic wisdom. See you in the next video.